How much stuff is too much stuff? This is the Unexpected Podcast.
Welcome, everybody. We are here in the podcast studio.
Wherever you go,
There you will be. Or whatever.
However that saying goes. How's everybody doing out there?
That's good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Thank you for your responses.
Yes,
we heard them all.
Mm-hmm, every one of them.
Yeah. So, Lee, are you ready to get into this topic that you just found out about a few seconds ago?
Yeah, it slipped my mind because I think the short-term memory's going a little bit.
Oh, come back. Come back, short-term memory.
What was it?
How much stuff is too much stuff? So, this is one of those questions that for which there is not one particular answer. Everyone has their own spin on it, their own take on it. But to me, I think it's a very interesting thing. And I think it's something that people think about a lot because, especially as you get older, because as the saying goes, we spend half of our life accumulating stuff and then the other half trying to get rid of stuff. So I have some thoughts on this, but what do you think about stuff, material goods?
How many guitars do you really need? Just one more. I mean, it's really, are you a collector or are you a hoarder? I think it comes down to those two things because, some people are they're collecting, plastic bags. I mean, it's like
that would be considered a hoarder unless they have some purpose for those bags.
Right. It's collecting things that have no purpose. They don't give you any enjoyment. You have a collection of them. You don't know why.
Right. And that's, been determined to be fear-based, often. I mean, it can be other factors too. I'm not an expert on hoarding or hoarders, but fear of lack and wanting to maybe be in control, that sort of thing.
Well, I said something about my short-term memory. I think it's just because I'm in pain.
Yeah.
I think that's why I didn't remember that earlier. But anyway, that's a side note.
Thanks for sticking out the podcast, even though you're in some pretty dire circumstances and
it's a little
pretty
rough,
intense pain.
But you know what? It makes me think. What is, I'm not able to do all those things, and is it worth hoarding a bunch of stuff in my life that the kids are just going to throw away when we die? I mean, is it worth keeping?
Right.
Is it got purpose? Have you used it in the last year or so? Is it going, or is it just clutter sitting around? I mean, what is stuff? How much stuff is too much? And I watched a little bit of a documentary last night, and it was talking about consumerism and the whole thought of I've got to buy more. I got to buy. I got to buy this. I got to buy that. I need this. I need that. What do we really need? We need food, shelter, and love, and a toilet.
That is really nice.
I mean,
it's a nice thing to have.
If you don't have a toilet, you got the woods and logs and,
which is fine when you go camping. Well, but let's go then, since you mentioned consumerism, let's talk about the accumulation phase. And now let me just share something from my perspective. And my take on this isn't necessarily the correct one. It's just my perspective and my opinion. So when I was a child, most of the time, most of those years growing up, we only got like new things like toys and those kinds of fun things when it was our birthday or Christmas.
Yep.
Or in our case, if our parents, which was rare, but if our parents went like on a weekend getaway and we stayed with a relative, then they'd bring us back something special. And that was always exciting. Yep. And because we weren't getting things all the time, and it wasn't a financial thing, we were okay financially, it was just that was the tradition and that's the way things were.
Yep.
Then it made those things that you did get more meaningful, for one. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't get things that children shouldn't get things at other times, but it is a little troubling to me when I see kids in the store like, Mom, will you buy this for me today? And it's no special occasion.
Right.
And it's like, how many Barbies do you need? How many whatevers do you need?
Right.
And I think it makes it less meaningful when you have so much stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, we witness this with our children, and other people have witnessed it. Sometimes it's like the main toys aren't even as much fun to play with as a cardboard box sometimes, or something else. And
I remember our youngest for Christmas one time, opened up the wrapper. I mean, pulled the wrapping paper apart and said, "A box." And he was excited about the box. It wasn't what was in the box. It was
cute.
The box.
Right.
The box.
Right.
He was so excited. And the simplicity of life and the simplicity of things is most of the time more fun than the complexities of these toys that we have now. Virtual toys and all of that stuff. Getting back to the basics. I mean, to each their own. If you like technology, then that's your toy. That's fine if you can grasp that. But using the simple things. I mean, getting back to just living and not surviving, but just living.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned collectibles, and of course, there are things that people enjoy collecting. I mean, I obviously have a fairly large collection of books, and that's one thing that I don't want to part with.
Right.
But books are easy to get rid of later in life if you need to get rid of them.
Yep.
We have a number of musical instruments
No.
in our home.
No.
But we do play musical instruments, so it's fun to collect those things, and people collect meaningful things, things that they're interested in.
See, now I'm an advocate for these musical instruments because never know when you might want to play a banjo or a theremin or.
Don't tell a banjo player that you own a banjo.
I'm so sorry.
You guys know what a banjo is?
Oh, it's a 6-string banjo, and
that plays like a guitar. But sounds
I know, I'm sorry.
like a banjo.
Yes, I am.
Hey, I'm not dogging it. I'm just saying a real banjo player might, but that's okay.
But anyway, I think that this whole thing of consumerism and just collecting just to collect or just hoarding or, how much stuff do you need? And, I could get by with 2-3 guitars, but why?
Yeah. And, we've touched here on one extreme, which is hoarding, having too many material things, more than you need. Then there's the other extreme. And I know a number of years ago, there was, especially a number of years ago, there was this minimalist push.
Mm-hmm.
People were going minimalist. And of course, nothing wrong with that. But then the other extreme is sometimes people do something just because it's a trend or because they're pressured into it. And then, anything that's an extreme can actually become an idol.
It can.
And that becomes your God. And then it's like, oh, I frown upon anyone who owns more than 5 articles of clothing because I'm a minimalist and I'm better than you. So we don't want to go to those extremes.
Absolutely
either.
Not. And extremes are never really that good. I mean, because, staying balanced and being even keeled, what does it say? It says in the Bible that a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that, if you either think you have too much or not enough, but you're telling everybody else that they need to be like you, but yet you don't do the things you say you're supposed to do, it just means you're unstable. And unstable people do crazy things.
They do. They go from one extreme to the other, and then they're trying to correct this extreme by this other extreme.
And thinks everybody else should go along with them.
Right. That's when it's problematic.
It is.
And I think that's always been one of our philosophies that we try to live by. It doesn't mean that we're perfect in it by any means, but trying not to say one size fits all and that everyone has to live just like we do. That that's really troublesome.
I'm seeing these ads on like Instagram or Facebook or whatever. It's like, don't do this. Mm-hmm. Like that's their lead in, mm-hmm. and it's like, don't tell me what to do
or not to do
Mm-hmm. Don't do this until you watch this video. I mean, it's like, come on, you guys, y'all gotta quit this bossing and thinking you got it all figured out, because those are the people you need to run from. If they think they've got it all figured out, then run, because they don't.
Yeah.
They may have an expertise in a certain area or something like that, but this whole thing of don't do this until you listen to what I have to say.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that drives me crazy. I don't like
clickbait.
that.
And we could do that even with our own podcast and our Instagram and our reels and our shorts. I just don't like that approach.
High pressure.
Yeah, or the kind of clickbait that makes it sound like they're going to address a certain situation, but they don't. They just want you to listen to what they have to say. But
then, what about those ones? And I sat there for like 45 minutes watching ones like how to lose weight or do this thing or get tone or whatever. It's like, click here and we'll explain. And then they start to explain. You think they're getting right to the point, and then all of a sudden they just keep going. And they don't tell you what the answer is. And then they get to the point and you think, okay, this is it. And then they keep going. And then it's like, are you ever going to get to the point? I understand you know what you're talking about, but tell me what the remedy is. Just get to the point.
I've learned that if they don't get to that remedy pretty quickly, they're not going to for another hour.
Until you pay $29.95.
Yeah. We're not doing that.
No.
Well, speaking of extremes, we do fall into extreme behaviors at times. And we were just talking about this other one the other day when it comes to food and eating. So, sometimes I'll go to this extreme where, yes, it's good to eat healthy. But then I've gone to such an extreme that I'm like, I shouldn't eat any carbs at all. Well, and then all of a sudden it kicks in and I'm like, I don't care what is laid in front of me, I'm going to eat it.
Yes,
and then we go to this other extreme where it's like, okay, I haven't eaten enough, and now I've let myself get not only hangry, but like kind of
shaky,
crazy and shaky.
Crazy.
And then you're going, and this is funny because his mom brought us some kind of little box of these things. They're actually called muffin tops. Okay. So this little box, and they're just like these little packaged, they're like the top of a muffin, and it's a muffin, but it just looks like the top of a muffin. Okay, so his mom brought those, and so then we just kind of put them in the cabinet. Like, we don't really need to eat those. Well, then I started taking any kind of, like if somebody brought us candy or just any kind of junk stuff, I put it in the little muffin top box. Because
just
then
reminder.
That will remind us that if you eat anything in this box too much, you're going to have a muffin top. But then I'll get desperate if I get hangry or shaky, and then I'm just running to the muffin top box and eating whatever's in the muffin top box.
The muffin top box. Do you know the muffin top?
Or that big cookie tin, also that your mother gave us at Christmas. And I thought, we'll never eat all those cookies. I need to just throw them away. Well, I never did. And then if I get desperate, I also run to the big cookie tin.
See, Mom knows what she's doing.
She does. She does.
She knows those emergency times.
Those emergencies when I just, I don't care. I'm going to the muffin top box.
So, and that, how much is too much, in stuff, in eating, in... what extremes are we willing to go to satisfy our whim? Whims?
Or every whim?
Every whim? Whelm? Overwhelm? Wilma?
Wordplay.
I have this thing where I want to eat peanut butter and ice cream so bad, but I don't, because I know it makes you fat. And sorry if that's an offensive word, but obesity, fat.
Well, you can't even use that word now.
What, really?
Obese is supposed to be banned, but we don't care.
I can't keep up with this word game that the society, these social norms keep changing.
Talk about extremes.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about with trends. Trends come and go.
Right.
And they're useless. I don't follow trends. Find what works for you and stick with it. Just be. Learn how to be. You know, whether you say fat or obese, it means you're plump. It means you're, and sometimes it is big boned. Who cares what it is? I have fat around my midsection.
That's the scientific term, even.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's because either my metabolism has slowed down or I've sped up my eating.
Right.
It's fat.
Right. Just it is what it is.
I'm healthy.
That's right. Well, yeah. And here's the thing about trends. Who has the energy to keep up? I mean, especially if you're trying to keep up with the latest ideological trend, the latest diet trend, whatever the case may be, it is just exhausting to try to keep up with what's the latest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people now are like doing, there's a huge podcast trend.
I know, and we got on that one, but you know what? Evidently, here we are at episode something, 70
something. But we didn't really do it because it was a trend. We did it because we wanted to.
We kind of envisioned it for a long time.
Yeah.
And, because you've been involved in media of various types.
Well, it's my degree.
And we have cameras. We have equipment
right.
for ourselves to help our sons and, some of their friends and their endeavors. And so if you got the equipment, put it to use.
Right, exactly. And I think that's viable.
It kind of comes back around to stuff. How much stuff do people have that they don't use frequently? So why not put our stuff to work?
Exactly.
I mean, we got lights, we got camera.
We got action.
There we go. So.
Yeah, so I don't think that hoarding, is a good thing.
No.
But I don't think I'm sentimental. Mm-hmm. I keep things.
Mostly mental.
Mental? But I like to collect things. Mm-hmm. I like to remember where they came from. When somebody gives me something, that means a lot to me.
Right.
So I hold on to it. I had a mentor who passed away, and I got his jacket. His wife, she's a mentor to us too, and she gave me his jacket, and I was excited, and I still have it.
Right.
I still have that jacket,
right?
Because he meant a lot to us,
right?
And it's hanging in my closet. I may never wear it. Mm-hmm. I may never, Yeah. I think his son. It might have been his son that gave it to me.
No, I think it was his wife.
Was it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember.
She's getting rid of things.
Yeah. But it meant a lot because I remember sitting and talking to him while he wore it and getting advice.
I mean, I could still see him in it. Like, it was kind of like,
it
was a summation of who he was in the winter anyway.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And he would always say, and that's a fact, Jack.
Yep.
I remember, man, there's some cool stuff.
Yeah.
When you have good mentors. And if you are not a mentor, think about the ethics behind it and think about how you can invest in other people. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, that's a little bit of switch of what we're going to, but it kind of comes around to, the social norms, how much is too much? How much information do you need to shove down people's throats and call yourself a mentor? And how much information should you, take from people who want to be a mentor? I mean, I don't know.
Well, and, how much information is too much information, since we're talking about how much stuff is too much stuff. Shoving information down people's throats never works.
No.
And we're in a time where a lot of people are deceived about a lot of things. Not that we claim that we have all the answers, but when you see someone that's blinded to something that is reality, it's not going to do any good to try to shove the truth down their throat.
Right.
But if you can plant little seeds and you get people to start asking questions, see, people are more likely to be able to process information if they feel like they're coming to that conclusion themselves.
Absolutely.
And so if you can and we have a friend who I love it because you can make a statement and he won't counter you with a counter argument, but he'll ask a question about it. And it kind of makes you think like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how much information is too much information?
Yeah. Well, I think we're all on a little bit of information overload from the internet and Facebook and social media.
I've been really making efforts to distance myself from too much of it.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference.
Well, this, you know,
get out a book and just
there is a thing called social engineering. Mm-hmm. And it's very smart people who are trying to direct society to go in a certain direction. And they, you know, since social media has come about, it has made it easier to direct society into a direction they want.
But I would also counter in that that's very true. But then also we've already had the mainstream media, which was already doing that. So some social media efforts are counter to that, that are actually proclaiming things that are true. But again, it's a lot to sift through.
Yeah.
And that's where we need spiritual discernment, critical thinking skills. Yeah, and balance.
And be able to, if you don't go out there and start quoting things that you haven't researched.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. Yeah. And people, you know, they start telling me, well, the Bible is this and that. It's like, have you read it? Well, no, but.
Right.
It's like, well, you should probably read it before you start commenting on it and telling me that I'm wrong since I've read it.
Yeah. And I can never remember how to quote this proverb correctly. But there's a proverb which basically says an argument sounds convincing until you hear the counter argument. And so there's a lot of things out there that sound very convincing, whether it's coming from this perspective or that perspective, but maybe you're not getting the full picture.
Right. I mean, how it's like, do you have a ground view of the situation or do you have a sky view? So people say here's an overview. Well, an overview means you're looking at it from the top and looking at all of the information all at once, but just highlights of it. But when you go into, you know, bullet points and getting down to the nitty gritty of it, it takes a little bit more time because you're sifting through the cornfield instead of looking at the cornfield from above. Yeah. You know, and I think that having too much stuff, you need to do an overview of all of the things, like from a top down view of all the stuff you have. Do you really need it?
Right. And this is a good place to, I think, conclude. You know, Jesus told a parable about a man who had accumulated so much wealth, but that his barns or his storage facilities were not large enough to contain it, so he had those torn down so he could build bigger facilities to contain all the stuff. And then, you know, he wasn't going to be able to take it with him into eternity. And so ultimately, eternity is what matters. And so we don't ever want stuff to get us off track in our walk with God and what's important in our relationships,
with God and
family.
That's
right. That's right.
Well, that was a pretty good subject.
Hey. All right.
I got some stuff out of it.
You got some stuff?
Oh, I have
good
more
pun.
enlightenment.
Yeah, but you made a great pun.
Yes, I did.
You got some stuff out of our topic on stuff.
Are you going to send me to the penitentiary?
I'm going to send you to the penitentiary for that Pentium processor in your brain. Although people don't even know what a Pentium processor is anymore. I guess that's an outdated joke. All right, guys. We will see you on the next episode.
See you guys.
Don't forget to like this video and please subscribe to our channel. Drop your comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you prefer audio podcasts, please follow us on your favorite streaming platform.